Module 2, Carbohydrate Optimization Protocols. Carb loading is going to be mainly dependent on duration. For exercise bouts below 90 minutes, topping off is simply sufficient. In this instance, we're almost all exclusively looking at the sprint distance, and anywhere of at least 6 grams to kilograms, but up to 7 to 12 grams per kilograms of carbohydrate in just the 24 hours leading up to the event is gonna be sufficient in terms of a carb loading aspect, for any bouts below 90 minutes. When the exercise bout or race you're preparing for extends beyond that 90-minute mark, that is when a more comprehensive carb loading prescription is going to be more beneficial. 36 to 48 hours seems to be the mean, but up to even a 3 day, 72-hour carb loading protocol could be beneficial, especially with the higher intensities or longer duration races. Closer to a 10 to 12 gram per kilogram is going to be recommended, and even the upper range of that, all coming down to oxidation rates of the individual athlete and gastric tolerance. For the morning of on race day, our exercise bouts seems to be pretty uniform across the board in the 1 to 4 hours leading up to the race day event. You would want to ingest 1 to 4 grams per kilograms to simply top off at glycogen stores. Overnight, your body is still burning fuel, but not intaking anything. So you're naturally going to be in a fasted state upon waking. So just topping off in the morning is going to be sufficient to make sure your glycogen stores are topped off. Some considerations to take into place. GI distress is going to be a limiting factor for carbohydrate intake amongst most athletes except top level athletes that are accustomed to higher intakes of carbohydrate ingestion. This is particularly found in newcomers as well. The predominantly high carbohydrate intake diet can be a novel stimulus for some triathletes, and thus in turn could provide some distress to the system. Because of this, you want to avoid high fiber, decreased protein and fat intake. So it can allow for a higher carbohydrate intake in the instance of satiation, and calorie intake, total calorie intake, but also to limit any stomach distress. The gut is also something that can be trained. So, like touched upon earlier, GI distress may not be the predominant limiting factor for elite athletes because they have been used to higher levels of carbohydrate intake by this point in the game. So their oxidation rates of carbohydrate could be elevated compared to the majority of athletes. Um, and the instances of distress would be decreased. The gut can be trained during training, in the off season, base training, in peak phases of training as well. Just experimenting with race day nutrition can acclimate the body and adjust to the higher intakes of carbohydrate.